podcast. Thank you for joining us. Today I have the privilege of interviewing Howard Sir. As many of you know, he is like the one of the biggest names in restorative justice. Howard, thank you for letting me interview you. Welcome to Mexico.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. The first thing I want to ask you, many people don't know, what is restorative justice? Can you give us a definition?
Well, I can try. Basically, restorative justice is an effort to put repairing the wrong, the harm, at the center of justice. Instead of the legal system, which focuses more on making sure the offender gets what they deserve, restorative justice really wants to put the victims in a more central place. So our concern has been to repair the harm. I often say there's three principles to restorative justice. One of them is that it's about harm and the needs that come from the harm. That we put that central means we put victims central. Secondly is obligations. We want to encourage, maybe even pressure offenders to realize what they've done and take responsibility for it. And then third is to engagement, to try to engage those people who have a stake in this situation in the solution to it. So victims, offenders, communities ought to be involved in the resolution of it. Is that close enough?
I think that's pretty clear. Thank you very much. The second question I wanted to ask you, you were addressing it already, is what are the principles of restorative justice?
Well, as I said, that I usually try to make it simple, and I can remember it that way. So again, revolving around this idea of harm and the needs that come from it, the first principle. Second is the obligations that the offender and others might have. And third is engaging people. I often say it's a matter of asking different questions. The legal system asks three questions. It said, well, laws have been broken, who did it, what do they deserve? Restorative justice starts with different questions. It asks, who's been hurt in this situation? What are their needs? Whose obligation are they? Who needs to be involved in this process? So those are the principles. Behind it are values like respect and responsibility and relationship. So it's a combination of principles and values, really, that matter.
Thank you very much. And that was also the third question I wanted to ask you, the values behind restorative justice. So that leads me to my third question. Could restorative justice be used to address the so-called school violence, otherwise known as bullying?
Well, when we started doing restorative justice, we were working with crimes. We were concerned about the way the legal system wasn't really addressing the needs of victims and so forth. Interestingly now, the biggest growth area all over the world is school applications. That is, schools are finding that their traditional ways of discipline are just basically reflections of the legal system, and beginning to use things like circles and victim offender conferencing and that kind of thing as a way to address issues of wrongdoing, including bullying in schools. So school-based programs are the biggest growth area, I think, in the world right now.
Okay. Well, thank you for your answer. That was also very clear. Finally, what is the greatest challenge when proposing a change of lenses, understanding lenses as attitudes, ideas, a group of people have in common, when introducing a restorative approach to deal with crime instead of a retributive approach?
Well, I would say, I'll have to speak to the U.S. context since I can't really speak to the Mexican context. But in our context, I'd say the two biggest obstacles are the punitive culture, the values that are built into our culture. American culture is a very punitive culture. The second biggest one is all the self-interest in keeping it the way it is. That includes the people who work in the system, but it also includes the industry that's making money over prisons and all that kind of thing. So, and the politicians who have interest in using crime issues to further their goals. So I'd say the two biggest challenges are addressing the cultural issue and addressing the self-interest issue.
Well, thank you very much. Very interesting points of view. I feel very honored that you let me interview you. And you're always welcome in Mexico, especially you're always welcome in Coahuila, which is the state I'm from. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Gracias.